In the 4 decades that I spent in the corporate world, meandering from a mere management trainee right all the way up to a chief executive officer, I had spent half a decade in the world of advertising. And that was approximately after having spent 3 decades in the corporate world. Well, why did I get into advertising? One of the reasons was I was always in sales and business development, and I knew how to take a product to the customer, but I didn't know how to launch a product. So it was then when I decided that I must get into advertising and understand how product launches happen. So I joined one of the world's largest advertising agency, and as the activation head. And in those wonderful 5 years that I spent with them, I learned so much about advertising, about building up a brand, and more importantly, event management. Event management is a complete science by itself. It's just not any, rocket science. It's not a no-brainer. It requires enormous amount of planning, enormous amount of strategy, enormous amount of PR with your clients. And let me tell you, every topic imaginable on event management constantly talks about the event. Very, very few people talk about what should be the event manager all about. And that's something that I want to talk about today. I want to give you some really sledgehammering tips that I learned when I was hosting events in the ad agency. And let me tell you, we did one which was called the Bangalore Habba. It had a 7-day free. It was a festival for artisans, artists, free movies, free amazing shows attended by 40,000 people. Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia. We had Zakir Hussain. We had the best. And it was actually made in the lines of the festival, 7-day festival happens in Edinburgh. But what is the event manager all about? We all know how to run events. I mean, we all know the various complications that get an event, running by managing an event. But what about the event manager? The biggest learning that I got from handling events was don't manage events. Turn each event into a legendary expression of yourself. And that's where we're going to head this session. Well then, now here's my first big tip, sledgehammering tip, to make you an exceptional event manager. Number 1, be fearless. Be absolutely fearless and take over the event. Take over command of the event. Remember something, once the date is fixed, the die is cast. Once the date is fixed, the die is cast. There is no turning back. So be 100% responsible for the event and be 100% responsible for yourself. And you can only do this if you are bold, strong, fearless, and take on the event as a part of creating a new legendary expression for yourself, your client, and your audience. Tip 2. Put the plan agreed upon with the client into the contract. Very, very few people do this. They always tend to skip this. This is a very critical part for every event manager. Put that plan that you decided with the client decided with you into the contract. Because if your client turns out to be as creative as you are, Oh man, you're heading for trouble. Because every time he's going to keep thinking of new creative ideas, change things around, and it's going to absolutely jeopardize all the strategies that you and your team might be putting into organizing this or turning this event into a success. 3. Have a close connect with your team. This is critical. Just remember one thing, event manager, each member of your team is an extension of your responsibility. If you can understand this, each member of your team is an extension of your responsibility. You will automatically be responsible for them. And when you become responsible for someone, what's the big advantage? You are in line with them. You are working in tandem with them. They are working in tandem with you. And oh wow, man, what an amazing team that will turn out to be. Tip 4. Procrastination is, oh my God, a disaster for, it's a recipe for disaster. Procrastination is a recipe for disaster. Just because you may at the very beginning look at the timeline and say, I have another 5 weeks, I have another 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and then you start procrastinating some of the work, and most of the work that you procrastinate will be the ones you don't like. Tell me that. Isn't that true? Most of the work that you tend to procrastinate are those that you actually don't like. We do it all the time in our lives. We're always doing it. You procrastinate. Your team procrastinates. Everything is loaded down into tighter and smaller time frames, and you have a pile up at the end, and you will end up with a sadly highly stressed team whose efficiency levels would have almost dilapidated to 0 levels. Tip number 5. Step back often and take a bird's eye view of what's happening. Look at your entire event, not only as you as the event manager, but also as the client. And again, as the audience. And here it's not a bad idea to actually run it off to people who could possibly be like your audience and take a view from them in terms of how would they feel with this sort of event that you are creating. So always step back at times. Look at the whole event with a bird's eye view and look at it through various eyes. It will give you so much of informed information, highly informed information, because now it is just not you looking at it. Now you're looking at it through other most important people, client, audience, even your vendor. Well, why not, right? The 6th most sledgehammering tip: questions, questions, questions. You know, a lot of event managers, they buckle down very soon. They don't want to ask questions. I used to ask questions, loads of questions with the client. Because see, the client will have 1,000 different ideas. Most of them, let me tell you, are not workable. So you have to make it work, right? So you've got to keep asking questions, and in the process what happens is the client's answers slowly start moving towards a more logical approach or idea of the event, which makes your execution awesome, doesn't it? So question your client, question your vendor. Why cannot it happen? What is stopping him? What does he need? Quick questioning. In the questions, you will get an amazing set of answers which will fortify whatever strategy you are creating to kick off a legendary event. Number 7, nothing is too much trouble. Let me tell you this. Things happen, things change, and you know what keeps hitting the roof, right? If you're a smart event manager, pick up the pieces and put it back in the jigsaw puzzle. cool, calm, sassy. That's all right. Things happen. Changes will happen. Keep your cool. Tip 8. You need to have super energy, my friend. You need to be working out. Now, don't tell me that, hand events and it's a very long session and I work through the night. I've been handling events for 5 years in one of the world's largest advertising agency. Let me tell you, I never skipped a workout. I never skipped neglecting my diet. I never skipped spending time educating myself on the project that I had. Right? There is time for everything. If you are well time managed, there is no way, absolutely no way, that you can neglect all this. Because if you do, you're going to turn out to be a lousy event manager with an even more lousier event in hand. Right? And 9, most important, very important. I want you to listen to this very, very carefully. Work-life balance. In those 4 decades I spent in the corporate world and this almost half a decade as an entrepreneur, I believed in one very, very simple philosophy. Who you are and what you do, please listen to this very carefully. Who you are and what you do between 6 p.m. in the evening to 9 a.m. in the morning will completely have a strong effect, negative or positive, on what you are and what you do between 9 a.m. in the morning and 6 p.m. in the evening. And I am telling you out of years of a professional experience in the corporate world and as an entrepreneur. If you cannot balance your 6 to 9, your 9 to 6 is going to be a whirlpool. So concentrate, very important, on who you are, what you do between 6 to 9. Quit the regular drinking. Stop hitting it out with your friends all the time. Don't overdo the social bit. Be ensconced in the family that you have. Read, educate yourself. Put thoughts in your mind that will make tomorrow amazing, because what you think is what you become. You got me? This is a very, very important aspect for every good event manager. Work-life balance only happens when you take on 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. very seriously. Well, I just hope these points that I learned as an event manager, apart from a host of other tips I could give you, makes a world of difference to you. And I'll see you soon with something even more exciting. Till then, hey, you take care.